7 and 8. So basically, in that, Lama Tsongkhapa explained the excellent qualities of these teachings. Through the Lamrim teachings, we can understand how all the Buddha's different teachings that Buddha gave, they are not contradictory. Even though sometimes you find C, if you take it literally, it might seem sometimes there's a contradiction, but if you go deeper, then there's no contradictions. And to understand all the Buddha's teachings are given in order to help benefit each individual sentient beings. So through Lamrim, then we get to know all the Buddha's teachings there is no contradictions. Thinking some of those teachings are to be, okay, maybe we don't need to go too much. And also through that, also understanding all these Buddha's teachings are given as instructions to transform our mind, transform our heart, So it is not, the teaching are not given just for a sake of just collecting knowledge or for sake of becoming intellectual or to become a expert in debate and like that. But instead, all the Buddha's teachings were given as instructions to transform our mind. And so through Lamrim, we begin to understand that. Through that, then we also understand all the Nagarjuna's writings are also instruction to transform our heart, not just a debate. And also it helped us to it also helped us to find understand and quickly that how all the Buddha teachings are the instruction to guide towards our enlightenment, directly, indirectly. Some of those teachings are the main instructions to achieve enlightenment, and some of them as a more like a preliminary practices towards that actual practices. So directly, indirectly, all them getting towards our enlightenment. And we get to understand that through the Lamrims. When we really understand through Lamrim, then we begin to understand that. And through that understanding, then it helps us to stop creating any negative karma in relation to the Dharma. Because if we don't understand that, then sometimes we think, oh, those teachings are, those teachings are, let's say, Hinayana teaching. These are my teachings, and therefore those Hinayana teachings that we don't need or we don't need to practice. Through that kind of attitude, through that kind of actions and behavior, we could create negative karma in relation to that. Instead, we understand all the Buddha's teachings are instructions to help and benefit each and every sentient beings individually. And they all are an instruction to transform our hearts. So, sometimes, even though those writing by the Nagarjunas and Asangas and Chandrakidis and Dhammakidi and those great Indian masters, even though they are great source of teachings to practice, but sometimes it's hard to know how to make them applicable in our everyday life and in our teachings. But through Lamrim, then we get to understand and we learn how those can be applied into our everyday life and in our teaching. So that Lamrim really helped to do that. And then, of course, so thereby it helped us to stop creating negative karma in relation to the Dharma. Now, And then verse number 10, Lama Tsongkhapa, it contains the whole essence of, therefore, it contains the whole essence of all the Buddha teaching in this Lamrim. And so thereby when we study the Lamrim, when we recite, when we memorize, when we study, when we reflect, when we contemplate, then we are doing that. We create incredible amount of merit as we are reciting whole Buddha's teaching, as though we are memorizing the whole Buddha's teaching, the benefit of, as though we are studying the whole Buddha's teachings, the whole Buddha's reflecting, contemplating on whole Buddha's teaching, because it's content the very essence of all the Buddha's teaching, in a very short scriptures, in very short, but it contains all the meaning, the essence of all the Buddha's teachings of 84,000. And so, and then the actual study, the text start from verse number 11 and 12, from 11. So in 11, it says, how to rely on the spiritual mentor or teachers properly, because that is the very root of all our realizations, and all our positive and enlightened qualities, excellent enlightened qualities. And so therefore, of course, when we are exploring our path, it's not necessary to have a spiritual teachers or mentor, because we are just exploring, trying to see whether this particular spiritual path suit me or not, whether it's something beneficial to me or not. And so when you are exploring, then of course, but once we have explored it and once we have found this particular path to be suitable for us, beneficial to us, and we want to pursue it seriously and commit itself, and if we want to really have a realization, not just an intellectual understanding and just a gathering and information and knowledge, but if we want to really have realization and transformative experience and realization, then it's important to have spiritual mentor or teachers. And of course, again, that has to be qualified, not, and so Lama, we don't want to go detail, but you study like Lamrim, then Lama Tsongkhapa explain what are the qualities of such qualified and authentic teachers. And once you find such a authentic and sincere teachers with such qualities, then once you find that, then how to rely it properly in terms of through the thought and through the actions. And in terms of the thought, then once we have found that spiritual teacher, then we try to develop strong kind of devotions, faith, by reflecting, contemplating on all their positive qualities, that you can experience, that you can see, that you hear, and the more you reflect, the more you contemplate on that, the more stronger your devotions, the more stronger your faith. And with that kind of strong faith and devotions, then it opens your heart, your mind. And when our mind is more open and spacious, we are able to receive more. When our heart is not open, then even the teachers has so much to offer and give, we don't receive everything. because our mind is not totally open to that, But when our mind is open, then you are able to receive much more. So then when you receive, you don't just receive, new informations. Sometimes, you're teaching, even though it's a very nice teaching, but it's just like information, but it's not a transformative. Nothing really changed in your heart. Nothing transformed. So, but when our heart is really open, then it go beyond your ear. It go deep into your heart. It started to sink. And then something started to change in your heart, in your mind. So that comes because of our openness. And that openness comes because of our the faith and devotions. And then through that, and then also we try to develop strong sense of through the thought, respect, by remember the incredible kindness of our spiritual guru mentors who guide us, who show us the path through their teachings, their precepts, their oral transmissions, empowerment, and so forth, or whatever, through their great example, inspirations, So, and the more we reflect their kindness in that way, the more you feel closeness with your teachers. The more when you feel closeness with your teachers, it's more easy to develop the respect. And the more respect you have, again, the more we receive it, And so we receive more and we gain more by being able to open our heart through the devotion and the respect. And so that is how to properly rely through the thoughts with that, And then in terms of the actions, then pleasing the guru through our actions, through our offering services, things, and especially by offering our practice. That is the best offering that we can give back by taking the guru's teachings, instructions into the path and really practicing ourselves, and then dedicating whatever we have practiced for the offering and dedicating for the guru, and that is the best offerings. And Lama Tsongkhapa said he did that himself, and he encouraged the disciple to also to do that. And if we are using this as a source for our meditation and practice, for example, this text. So then you recite that verse, the two verse, 10 and 11, and then you visualize. You already visualize, the merit field before that, and then refuge and bodhicitta, and then you do the 7 limb practice, long, short, and then you make a strong, heartfelt request for the guru and the Buddhas to bless us to have all these realizations, to be free from all the internal obstacles, and to be able to develop all the inner realizations. And then white light and nectar flow from the guru's heart, which is their enlightened wisdom and compassions in the form of white light nectars, cleansing and purify all our negative energy, especially in this case, all the negative karma and obscurations, to be able to have a proper, correct guru devotions has been cleansed and purified. And then again, yellow nectars, orange nectars flow entering from the crown and filling whole our body from the down to the top, and then receiving all the enlightened blessing of enlightened body, speech, and mind, and all the realization, and especially all the Lamrim realization, and particularly when we are doing here, then the realization of Guru devotions, receiving that. So after you have done that visualization, cleansing, and then receiving the blessings, then you try to meditate more intensely on these particular subjects, going more details. The benefit, first starting with the benefit of correctly relying on the spiritual teachers, and disadvantage of not relying or incorrectly relying, and then meditating on the guru's qualities, inner qualities, and in order to develop more faith and devotions, and then contemplating on kindness in order to have a strong sense of respect. And so then you do, so that is, and you do that to all other verses, okay? So here I just start with these first verses, how to do, then you do the same with each verses when you do the meditation. So I don't have to go each, but when you are using that, so just to give some idea how to. And then next is the verse number 13, you know. And so verse number 13, once we have found such a qualified and authentic guru and teachers, and then relying properly through thoughts and actions, so then we have to take through the purpose of relying on teachers so that we can receive the teachings, instructions, and inspirations, and so that we can practice, and so that we can make our life more meaningful. So we can make our life more meaningful, and with more and higher purpose and meaning in our life. And so then encouraging to take essence from our life, and then make our life meaningful. And so and we have to do that when we have this precious human life. That's the time to do it. And so then there it explained about verse number 13 and 14. It explained about precious human rebirth. So first of all, precious human rebirth, we call it precious. First of all, I know when you talk about precious human rebirth, not all the human rebirth are precious human rebirth. When we talk about precious human rebirth, we are talking about precious human rebirth with 10 endowment and 8 leisures. So that means having free main obstacle to practice the Dharma. So that is what 8 leisure are, or freedom. So that means a human life that is free from most of the obstacle to practice the Dharma, different states. And 10 endowment means having gathered most of the conducive condition to practice the Dharma. And not everyone had that. Not all sentient beings have that. Not all human beings have that. And so, again, we don't need to go each of them again because of the time, But let's say if we are born as an animal, will we be able to practice the Dharma? It will be extremely difficult. Practicing the Dharma is not an external, it's an internal. It's changing your mind. Changing your mind through contemplative, through meditations. And it's, in an animal, even though some of them are very, very smart, but still it will be very challenging for them to be able to contemplate and meditate and really transform their mind, And so definitely, if we are born in a lower realms, any of the lower realms, it will be very difficult to practice the Dharma. And even we are born as a human beings, um, if you are born in a certain places where you have no freedom of your religious, it will be very difficult to practice. Even you have the wish to practice, Even you have the wish to practice, you will not be able to, if we are born, or if we are, for whatever reason, we have to be in a country where there's no freedom to practice the religious or your spiritual path, and then even if we are born in a place where there is a freedom, if we have a damage to our mind, and if we have damage to our senses, then again it will be very limiting, because we will have limiting resources to study and practice. It doesn't mean you can't, but you will have some limitations. Of course, nowadays things are improving, With the technology, things are improving. Even people who have disability, who are blind or who cannot hear, still they have some resources with the new technology, but still they don't have same resource as someone who has intact of all of that. So again, we are very fortunate that we are free from that. Very fortunate, And even where our senses are intact and our mind is good, but if we don't due to our upbringing or conditions or friends and that, if we have no interest in the Dharma, then again, either you have wrong view, wrong understanding, misunderstanding, wrong view about the Dharma, or you have no interest, and then again, you can't practice the Dharma, At least, so, through that, going, reflecting, contemplating from each of those qualities, the 18 qualities, 8 leisure and 10 freedom, and then we try to feel how fortunate and lucky I am. With each of them, as we go through each of them, feeling how lucky and fortunate I am, feeling so grateful, thankful. So recognizing the value of our life. Through that, then we recognize the value, preciousness of our life. When we don't really reflect, then we don't really recognize. Even we have such a, value and preciousness, sometimes we don't recognize it, So instead of starting the day by recognizing that, feeling so happy, we start the day complaining how bad the life is, how horrible the life is. But if we really meditate on precious human life with each of them, then you begin to appreciate how fortunate, how lucky I am that not everyone has such an incredible, of everyone, not everyone is so fortunate to have all these qualities and opportunities. And with after that, then you then you try to meditate on the preciousness of this human life, in a sense that if we utilize it properly, we can achieve happiness of this life through this life, human life. We can achieve happiness of future life, future higher rebirth. We can achieve happiness of liberations. We can achieve happiness, the happiness of fully enlightenment. We have the same potential, this human life. Even the Buddhas and all the great masters who have achieved those enlightenment, they have the same like us, same body, same human same human rebirth. They achieved that in that same human rebirth, and we have that same potential, the Buddha nature, and same potential internally, externally. So through that recognition, then it should inspire you to not to waste it and make most of it. And we have to make most of it now because, such precious human life is not easy to achieve again and again. It's rare, And then if it is something that we can achieve again and again, then even if we don't utilize it properly now, maybe next time we can do something about it. But there is no guarantee that we could have that. And so therefore, when you have the opportunity in your hand now, we should try to utilize it properly. Sometimes it's interesting, isn't it? We are the way we are. We make a lot of prayers to be born as a human being in the future, to have a high rebirth. For what purpose? If you don't utilize it now, when you have, even if you have a rebirth as a human being next time, it's not going to be better. And sometimes I feel like it is like, you are hungry and food is in front of you and you are making prayer. May I find a food in the future? You are hungry, the food is there. Instead of eating the food and fulfilling your hunger, you keep it there and then make a prayer. May I find a food tomorrow or next week because I'm hungry. Sometimes it is a strange that how we do, we don't have to pray to have a precious human life. We already have now. And how, when we already have that, how can we make most of it? If we make most of it, you don't even have to pray. You will have a high rebirth next time. Because you have created cause and conditions. When you have created right cause and conditions, whether you make prayer, you don't pray, whether you wish, if you don't create the cause and conditions by wishing and praying, it doesn't come. We have to create the cause and conditions. And creating the cause and condition means practicing now, And so, so through reflecting on that precious human rebirth, by reflecting on the 18 qualities, then we come to a conclusion that we have to make our life meaningful by practicing the Dharma. And by reflecting, by reflecting on the preciousness of the human life, then we come to conclusions, there's a potential to achieve enlightenment and to achieve lasting true happiness for others and oneself. And by reflecting on the how rare and difficult it is to obtain again in the futures, then we come to a conclusion that we have to practice now and make our life meaningful now. And not only we have to make our life meaningful now, when we have this precious human life, but we have to make it meaningful now, when we are still alive. Because this life, this precious human life, is not going to last forever. There is a expired date, expiring date, okay? It's not like something that you don't have expired date, expired date, you know. Our life also have an expired date. Sometimes the expired date comes before the date comes. Even it goes bad before even the actual date on the outside. And so therefore you can't take for granted that this precious human life is going to be last forever. And so therefore, so after that, then when we come to a conclusion that I have to take an essence from this life and make meaningful life. How can I make my life meaningful? And so through the practice of the Dharma, and there are three ways of making life meaningful. The best way of making our life meaningful is to develop love, loving kindness, compassion, both to the mind, and to be most benefit and help to all sentient beings, to other sentient beings as much as possible. And trying to achieve fully enlightenment in order to do that. Trying to achieve fully enlightenment in order to be the most benefit and help to each and every sentient beings. And trying to follow the path to do that. That is the best way of making our highest level of meaningful. Even if we can't do that, at least we can try to make our life meaningful by reducing and overcoming the afflictive emotions, the delusions, because that is the very root of our conflict, our problem, our sufferings. By being able to reduce and by being able to overcome all these defilements, all these delusions, then we will find true lasting happiness, and thereby making our life more meaningful. And even we can't make that, at least on minimum, we try to create cause and condition to have a high rebirth in the futures so that we can continue to practice in the future. And so that we have the right conditions so that we can continue to carry on what we have practiced further in the futures. So then making meaning. So in that, then those making meaningful for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the practice of highest capacity or scope, the practice making our life meaningful by reducing and overcoming the defilements is the practice of middle scope, and then making our life meaningful by creating cause and condition for high rebirth in the future is making the practice of small scope. So that is, and so in Lamrim, we talk about the practice of three scope or capacity. Or another way of putting it is that all the Buddha's teachings are given in order to deal with the afflictive emotion, the delusions, by reducing them, they're overcoming them. That is all the Buddha's teaching was given for that purpose, for that. And so the practice that stops us from engaging in unwholesome deeds due to the delusions. Out of the delusions, we engage in the unwholesome actions. That brings more harm and sufferings and pain to others and oneself. So the practice that help, that stops such harmful actions is the practice of small scope, and the practice that help to eliminate the delusion itself is the practice of the middle scope. And not only the delusions, but the practice that help us to overcome even the imprint that led by the delusions is the practice of high scope, the subtle obscurations. So again, it is one, the actual practice in dealing with the delusions is the middle scope, and the unwholesome actions that come from that delusions, and the practice that help to reduce to stop that is the middle scope, and the high scope is the imprint led by the delusions, the subtle obscurations, obscuration of knowledge. To overcome that is the high scope. So again, we can also understand three scope or capacity in from that point of view. And so from here, then I think it start the small scope. So then verse number 15, so as I mentioned previously, this human life does not last forever. Death is certain. Once we are born, we have to face this reality of the death, whether you want it, you don't want it. As long as we have this samsara rebirth, death is part of the package. It comes with that. Samsara birth is part of the package. If you want samsara birth, then death comes together. You can't say, I want the samsaric birth and I don't want death. You can't do that. It is part of the package. It's a reality, the fact that comes with samsara rebirth. So death is certain. But what is uncertain is when it is going to be is so uncertain. Death is certain, but the time of death is uncertain. Nobody really knows when we are going to die. When, where, how, that is uncertain. We can always wish, hope, pray in certain way, certain time, but we never know what is waiting there. We never know what is waiting there. So the time of death is so uncertain. Sometimes even though we feel is not going to come soon, because on the basis that because we feel we are still healthy, age is on our side, we are young, we live in a more better environment, peaceful environment, and so on. But nothing can guarantee. Someone who is very healthy today, tomorrow, things could change. Someone who is very young can die before someone who is old. Someone who is very healthy can die before someone who has been dealing with chronic sickness for a long time. Someone can die who live in a most peaceful environment can die much more before than someone who live in a much more violent environment. So all of this does not guarantee that we are going to live our life for that much of life, that we will have that much of lifespan. Is unpredictable. That our lifespan is so unpredictable. It could come anytime, any moment, to anyone. Realizing that, reflecting, contemplating on that, and realizing that can be very helpful to prepare ourselves. When we don't understand that, we keep on postponing our practice, even though we feel practice is very important. But we keep on postponing because we feel time, we will have a time to do that later. We take for granted the time will be on our side. But time does not wait for us. The time does not wait, because I'm going to wait because you haven't finished your practice. And I know that you want to practice. I know you want to practice. I know you have wished to practice. Therefore, I'm going to wait because you have not finished your practice. Time is not going to wait that. If that was the case, that would be great. Then we can relax. And we don't have to feel urgency. But since that is not the case, then we have to really practice now without postponing it. Whatever you feel meaningful, important, you have to take care of that soon as possible. And when the death comes, what help us? What really help us? As we mentioned last time, nothing. It's our own practice. That is all it can help. Our practice, our state of mind, our practice. Nothing can help us at that moment. Families, friends, wealth, fame, even your body, nothing help us when we started to live this life. If there is something that is very helpful while we're alive, at the time of death, after the death, then it is our practice. It is our mind. Our virtuous mind, our practice is that can help us while we're alive, at the time of death and after the death, our Dharma practice. And so that with that understanding and realization, then we make a strong determinations that, I have to practice the Dharma. There's nothing more meaningful than practicing the Dharma. There's nothing more meaningful than practicing the Dharma. Not only I need to practice the Dharma, I need to practice the Dharma immediately now without postponing it. And not only I need to practice the Dharma, since at the time of death and after the death, it is the Dharma that only helps. The Dharma should be my main focus. Not like a hobby. Hobby? Yeah? What do you hobby? Like you do some kind of games or drawing when you have time, Hobby. Sometimes Dharma is like hobby,
Hobby.
Oh, I feel like today. Hobby. Thank you. So sometimes the Dharma is like that for us, Oh, today I have a little bit of time. I feel like I don't want to do something, and I will do it. But rest of the time, I don't have time, I don't feel like doing it, and we don't do it. It's just like when you feel like I want to do some art, or I want to do some music, I want to listen to music, whatever. Sometimes that has to change. That attitude has to change. It should be the Dharma is the main, and all other our worldly things that we have to take care of are more like a necessity. To pay the bills and do other things, of course we have to do those things. But really, the focus is the main center of our life, main focus of our life become the Dharma. And when we say Dharma, Dharma means transforming your mind. Practicing Dharma means transforming your mind. Mm. So that is then the next. So then after the death, from Buddhist point of view, it doesn't end. The life continue. The consciousness continue, taking new form of life. And then what kind of rebirth that we take, it depends on our karma in our actions. If we have more stronger negative karma, most likely we will have a rebirth in one of the lower rebirth. If we have more positive, stronger positive karma, more likely that we have one of the higher rebirth. And especially our state of mind at the time of death also affect very much. And if we were to take a rebirth in the one of the lower rebirth, then not only the suffering can be much more intense, but to practice the Dharma become almost impossible. It's so difficult, extremely difficult. To start with, even as a human being, practicing Dharma is not easy. Do you find easy? Maybe some of you might be finding very easy. I don't find so easy for myself. And I'm supposed to have one of the probably the best condition to practice Dharma externally, internally. So if we find it not easy and difficult to practice the Dharma, even when we have such a good conditions, what can you expect when we are born in one of the lower rebirth, when the conditions to practice the Dharma, the obstacles are always there, and the conducive conditions so minimum, so little. And then it becomes extremely difficult, And so therefore, be careful what you wish, okay? Sometimes we feel that, sometimes we wish, oh, maybe I want to come next time as this puppy or eagle, flying eagle, Those animals seems much more simple and less complicated than we human beings. Sometimes we feel that way, isn't it? They are cute. They seems nice. We human beings are very, we human beings are very complicated, and sometimes we wish maybe I might want to come as a, maybe eagle hovering in the, flying, hovering, some, or as a maybe dolphin or whale, I don't know. But no matter you just imagine the opportunity to practice the Dharma. Do we have, no matter how challenging our life is and how complicating our life is, do any of those animals has a better condition to practice the Dharma, to work with their mind, to develop this kind of unconditional to develop unconditional, limitless love, compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom? Do they have that? Do they have that conditions? So, we human beings, no matter how complicating our life is, no matter how complicating we human beings are, we still have that incredible contemplative mind, cognitive. That's such a cognitive to be able to reason, just not an intuitive. We have intuitive as well as cognitive ability. And the practice of the Dharma has to come through both intuitive as well as cognitive to be able to reason, logic, use reasoning and logic, and through that is, and so therefore, so that was why I was saying, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes I hear people wanting to come as a bird or something else, because they think that is better than these very complicated human beings, So if you don't want to come as if you don't want to be born in a lower rebirth, then I think the way to protect ourselves from being born in one of the lower rebirth is by taking the refuge and going for the refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and not only taking refuge. Once we go to the refuge, then following the precept of the refuge, following the precept of the refuge. And the precept of the refuge is, of course, there are many precepts, but one of them, having taken refuge to the Dharma, is not to hurt and harm other sentient beings. And that on the minimum level, reframing from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions. That is a very, basic. And so once we take that refuge, and having gone for the refuge, and then trying to keep those precepts through the practice of reframing 10 non-virtuous actions, engage in 10 virtuous actions, if we do that, then you can protect yourself from being born in one of the lower rebirth and to create cause and condition of higher rebirth. Then when we die, we don't have to panic and ask, prayer from all these lamas, all the sanghas. You can peacefully, with confidence, peaceful and confidence that you will have a better higher rebirth because the way you live your life. The way we live our life on the foundations or on the principle of reframing 10 non-virtuous actions, engage in 10 virtuous actions as keeping the precept by having taken the refuge. And so, and in order to have that, in order to have a strong practice of reframing from such as 10 non-virtuous actions that brings more sufferings, hurt and harm to others and oneself, and to engage in a 10 virtuous action that brings more happiness, more joy, more benefit to others and oneself. In order to be able to practice that properly, we need to have a better understanding of karma, the law of cause and effect. The more stronger we have understanding and belief in law of cause and effect, the more it will help us to refrain from any non-virtuous actions. It will inspire us, it will encourage us to practice more virtuous actions all the time. because of understanding of the law of cause and effect, the karma. Because by understanding, if we engage in the negative karma, non-virtuous actions, it only brings more suffering to either ourselves, others, both. On the other hand, if we engage in the virtuous actions, positive karma, it only brings happiness either to oneself, others, both. And so with that understanding, that when you have more stronger understanding, deeper understanding, more profound understanding of the karma, automatically will stop engaging in any of the non-virtuous actions. Will, automatically engage in the virtuous actions more easily, more effortlessly when you have that understanding. And so, therefore, understanding of the karma have to build our practice on stopping, reframing from stopping or reframing from engaging in non-virtuous action, and inspiring to engage in the virtuous actions. And by reframing non-virtuous action, by engaging in the virtuous action, then we create cause and condition to have a higher rebirth, such as human beings. And not only as a human beings, if you want to have a precious human being, then also we need to practice. If we want to have a less financial struggles, not only as a human being, but within the human being, less financial struggles, then we have to practice generosity. And not only that, if we want to be a more kind of, beautiful, handsome, attractive, inspiring, then we need to practice patience. And so then all other virtues, but the main cause and condition to have a higher rebirth as a human beings is the practice of moral discipline or ethical discipline, and especially on very fundamental level, on the very basic level, the moral discipline of reframing or restraining from 10 non-virtuous actions, engage in 10 virtuous actions. And so I think that is the and so I think that is the verse numbers 15 and 16. And then I think 17, I think already I already discussed a little bit. Not only we want to have just a human life, but with all the right condition to practice the Dharma easily without a lot of struggles. Excellent human, not only as a human, but a human with all the excellent qualities, so that we have less struggle. For example, sometimes even you want to practice the Dharma, if someone is struggling with the financial situations, just for living, they have to work and they don't have time to practice because they always struggle with that, So and so many conditions has to come together, not just as a human, but many other conditions. So then gathering all these conditions so that we can have not only just as human life, but with a excellent human life where all the condition for practice Dharma is there. And then verse number 18, then is in order to protect ourselves from being born in one of the lower rebirth, we have to purify all the negative karma because it's a result of negative karma. And we have to purify all the negative karma that we have created in the past, and we should stop creating new negative karma, out of the defilements. And so therefore, in terms of the negative karma that we have already created in the past, then we try to purify it through the four opening powers. And if we purify the good things, the good gracious, the good things is that even though we might have created a lot of negative karma, it can be purified, the good news. It can be purified. First of all, if we can overcome the defilement, the delusions, even you have all these negative karma from the past which are not being purified, it is useless. The negative karma becomes useless, cannot produce any kind of effect. It's like a seed that never get water. Do you get it? Even you have the seed, if it never get water, it will never produce the plant. So we might have all this negative karma, but to activate those negative karmic seeds, we need the delusion, the defilements. And it is the delusion, the defilement that activate those negative seeds or negative karma. So when you are free from all these defilement, delusions, there's no condition to activate those negative seeds or karmic seeds. And so they are useless in that way. That is one way of doing it. But of course, overcoming defilement is not easy. We all know that. It is overcoming defilements. Is going to be a long fight, struggles, and but even without that, through purifications, through the four opening power, we can purify that. That one we can do that. That one, we can do that now. And so, again, I don't want to go, we don't have time to go details. And so the four opening power, first is that the power of regret. So regretting the whatever negative karma that we have done or created, acknowledging, accepting, and feeling regret, remorse about it. And second opening power is a strong determinations not to engage into that again, such negative karma again in the futures. And so having that strong resolutions, determination, promise, the power of that. And then the power of reliance. Sometimes it is called power of object, sometimes it's reliance. So that's taking refuge and generating bodhicitta mind. And so we rely on the same object to purify to the same object in relation to which we create negative karma. So negative karma we created either in relation to the sentient beings or in relation to holy objects. So to purify all the negative karma that we have created in relation to holy objects, we purify it by taking refuge to them. In order to purify all the negative karma that we have created in relation to the sentient beings, we generate a bodhicitta mind towards all sentient beings, and then we purify all the negative karma that we have created in relation to them. That is also why it is called reliance. We rely on the same objects to purify. And so that, and then the opening power of antidote. And that means, as a way of purifying whatever negative karma that we have created, then we engage in any of the virtues as an antidote towards that. Of course, there are specific, more recommended practices, such as Vajrasattva practices, 35 Buddha's practices, and meditating on emptiness, making holy objects and frustrating and so forth. But any virtuous actions as a way of purifying the negative karma, then we engage in any of the virtues. That is so. If we have those four opponent power and very sincerely and strong, then no matter how strong, how big negative karma, they all can be purified completely, And even if we cannot be completely purified because our four opponent power are not strong enough, they are not sensitive enough, still by doing the practice, it can reduce the effect of that negative karma. Even it is not completely purified, but it makes them more lighter and it reduces the consequences of that. And so therefore, purifications is another practice that we have access that we can use to utilize to reduce and purify all the negative karmas. So that is the verse number and then verse number 19 and 20 is the middle scope. So through the practice of having gone to the refuge and then having engaged in the 10 virtuous actions and reformed 10 non-virtuous actions, and through that, even though we have higher rebirth, such as human being, but still, as long as we are in samsara, still, it's still we are not free from the suffering. Even as a human being, even as a higher rebirth as a human being, still we are not free from the as long as we are not free from the samsara, we are not free from the suffering. And I don't think I have to talk so much about that suffering. We experience that all the time. Sometimes we just forget. And the life reminds us time to time, oh, you are still in samsara. You are still not free from the suffering. Sometimes when we forget that, sometimes we forget we are in samsara, and pretend that we are free from the samsara because things seem going smooth. And then we get distracted. And then suddenly the light reminds us, boom, hey, you are still in samsara. Don't get distracted. And that reminder comes very often, not just one time, very often, and sometimes those reminders can be shocking, too difficult to handle, but anyway, so even as a human, even we have that still, even as a human beings, even we have human life, for example, as a human life, we still go through the suffering of, birth, suffering of sickness, suffering of aging, suffering of death, and in between all the sufferings, the suffering, with our job, conflict in relationship with the peoples, the suffering of not getting what we want, the suffering of, losing what we have and what we don't want to lose, and all of that. There is so much pain and suffering. Until we understand until we see the nature of suffering, until we really understand deeply, we wouldn't have a true renunciations. And without that truth and the renunciations, the wish for liberations wouldn't really come from the heart. Even though we say we want to achieve liberation, but it's just in the mouth. It doesn't come from your heart, from the depth. It doesn't come from depth because our renunciation doesn't come from the depth. Our renunciation doesn't come from the depth. It's very shallow, very, very shallow. Our renunciation is very shallow. It's very artificial, superficial, not depth, because we haven't really understood the nature of suffering, the nature of samsara deeply, So, so in order to understand, in order to have a true renunciations, and in order to really understand the suffering nature of samsara, then we have to really understand not just the suffering of the pain as a suffering, but suffering of change as a suffering, and suffering of all-pervasive as a suffering. I think we more or less, we all understand the suffering of pain as a suffering. And we don't want that. We try to avoid that. Not only we, even the animal knows that, and they try to avoid that pain. Why? Because they recognize it is a suffering, it is a pain. So they try to avoid it. But it is when it comes to suffering of change, samsaric worldly pleasures or worldly pleasure, that is where samsaric pleasure, that we think it is a true happiness, when it is not true happiness. When it is in true nature, it's a suffering. And that is where, we still continue to run after that. We still continue to run after that. And we still continue to run after that, and we still continue to experience the suffering because we don't understand that as a real suffering. We think that is the happiness. Even though we have so many experience time to time that it was not really that true happiness, but we keep on repeating same thing. And the reason is that we haven't really understood deeply that those samsaric experience, samsaric pleasure are by nature is not true happiness. And more than that, then, the all-pervasive suffering, we have not understood that. And that means as long as our existence, our life, our rebirth is a result of samsara, result of the contaminated actions or karma and the delusions, that itself is suffering. When our life become prisoner and slave of our own karma and our own delusions, how can that be true happiness? That is a suffering. And if we really think it, are we prisoner and slave of our own delusion karma or not? It's something we need to think about it. Definitely, my life seems to be that. My life seems to be controlled by the karma and the delusions. And I'm just, become almost like slave and prisoner of that. I'm the prisoner of my own delusion. I'm the prisoner of my own contaminated karma. And as long as we are the prisoner and slave of that, there's no real freedom. And not having that real freedom itself is pain, suffering. And so once we understand that itself, not having freedom over your own mind and over your own delusion and actions of karma, that itself is suffering. Once you understand that, then we don't get any attached to any samsaric experience, any samsaric pleasure, any samsaric rebirth. And when we don't have any more attachment, when we don't have any more attachment and clinging to our samsaric, ordinary, mundane experience, pleasures, life, then you will have true renunciations. At the moment, we don't have true renunciation because our mind is still attached to a lot of samsaric experience, samsaric things, samsaric pleasure. We are still very much attached to that. And therefore, that is why there's no true renunciations. And without that true renunciations, then also our inspiration for the liberation also is not so sincere and not so pure. And once we understand the nature of the suffering, then, then next is, unless, so without understanding the true nature of the suffering, then you wouldn't have the inspiration for the liberation. And without understanding the cause of the suffering, you wouldn't develop a wish to abandon it. Once we have recognized the nature of suffering, then next is, can this suffering be ended or not? If the suffering cannot be ended, why even think about it? Just forget about it. It's a waste of time, energy. But if there is a solution, if that suffering can be ended, then it is worthwhile to think about it. Reflect, contemplate, meditate on that. And so, from Buddhist point of view, those suffering can be ended. And those suffering can be stopped. And how can we stop the suffering? By stopping the cause and condition that give rise to the suffering. And what are the cause and conditions is our own contaminated karma and the delusions. So all our experience, all our sufferings are a result of our own karma, and which are a result of our own defilement, delusions. And once we understand that, then we have a strong wish to overcome the contaminated karma and the delusions. And once we have a strong wish and inspiration to overcome the karma and the delusions, then how to do it? How can we do that? How can we overcome the karma and delusion? And by engaging in the practice of three higher training. And through the practice of moral discipline and meditative concentration and wisdom. By engaging in those three higher training, those three practice, then we can overcome the defilements. And by having overcome the defilements, then we can stop the karma, contaminated karma that is created by the delusions. And having stopped creating contaminated karma, then we stop samsara rebirth. Having stopped the samsara rebirth, then there is no more suffering of samsara rebirth, suffering of aging, sickness, death, and all other sufferings. And that is how we end the suffering permanently. And so that is the practice on the middle scope. And so that is the verse number so then verse number 21 and 22. start the practice on teaching on higher rebirth, higher scope, and that is the bodhicitta mind, cultivating the bodhicitta mind. So the altruistic intentions. Altruistic intentions is the root of our happiness, root of others' happiness, is the root of our happiness in this life, is the root of happiness in future life, is the root of happiness of temporary happiness, ultimate happiness, and is the root of our happiness, others' happiness, and the highest level, the altruistic intention, is the bodhicitta mind, the awakened mind of the bodhicitta. That is developed on the basis of great loving kindness and great compassion. And once we have that bodhicitta mind, through the power of that bodhicitta mind, it can transform all our ordinary actions into something meaningful, virtuous, positive, and it is the foundation for all the other bodhisattva practices and deeds, and so therefore we must put effort to develop the bodhicitta mind, and in order to develop the bodhicitta mind, then by meditating on, either by following the method of equalizing exchange insight with others, as you can see in the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life and all Lamrim, or by following the 7 point of cause and effect, and by following whichever different method, then we try to develop that bodhicitta mind. And once we are able to develop that bodhicitta mind, then our life becomes extremely meaningful. Once you have developed that bodhicitta mind, even you cannot fix everyone's suffering, everyone's problem, even though you cannot relieve of everyone's sufferings, by developing that bodhicitta mind, your life has been most meaningful. Most meaningful. And whenever we get opportunity, once you have that bodhicitta mind, whenever you get opportunity, and whenever you have the opportunity to be helpful, you will always be there to be help to others. When we don't have bodhicitta mind, then even when we have opportunity to be help to others, we can't be help to others. We are unable to be help to others. Why? It's not due to lack of opportunity. It's not due to lack of resource or skills, time, because it's due to lack of love, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. That's why we are unable to be help and benefit to others, when we could be help and benefit to others. So to really be a benefit and help to others, first we need to develop that love, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. And once that we have developed that love and compassion, then we can try to be help and benefit whenever possible. But even when we are not able to help, benefit directly, still with that our bodhicitta mind, we can help indirectly so many ways. When we make a dedication prayer for others, it becomes extremely powerful because of your bodhicitta mind. In that way, we are able to help others indirectly by sharing and dedicating our virtues. And so therefore, And because of bodhicitta mind, we get closer and closer to enlightenment. And the more and more closer to enlightenment we become, the more and more we are able to be more and more benefit to other sentient beings. And so therefore we need to develop the bodhicitta mind. And once we have developed the bodhicitta mind, then we should engage in the practice, bodhicitta practice, such as 6 perfections. And so the next verses come the 6 perfections. And then verse number 23 is the practice of the perfection of the giving or generosity. Now, I don't know. I think maybe we don't have time. And the practice of generosity is a antidote towards the miserliness, where we always feel we don't have enough to share, to give, And then verse number 24 is the practice of the perfection of moral discipline, No, sorry. So that is 23 and 24. And so then that is the generosity. And 25 and 26 is the practice of moral discipline. And so trying to guard our body, speech, and mind from engaging in any harmful, hurtful actions, and even the course of our life. And so that is the moral discipline. And it is an antidote towards our all the delusions, And then 27 and 28 is the discipline, the moral, the perfection of perseverance, And perseverance is a protection for ourselves from our own anger, The pain and suffering of our own anger is a protection from our own anger. Is also protections to help to protect our love, compassion, bodhicitta mind. Because when we have anger, we lose our love and compassion, bodhicitta mind. And so when we have patience, that it protects our love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, as well as it protects others getting harm from because of our anger and hatred. So it also it protects others, it protects us, and it protects others from our harm. It protects us from harm done by our own anger and hatred and so forth. And so that is the practice of perfection of moral discipline. Patience or perseverance. And then 29 and 30 is the perseverance. So again, perseverance in a virtues. So without perseverance, again, without perseverance, nothing can be achieved. And in order to our Dharma practice, in order to our Bodhisattva's practice, the Mahayana practice to succeed, we need perseverance in our practice, in our virtues, and it is that perseverance help us to overcome all the laziness, and through overcoming all laziness, it helps us to accomplish things that we want to accomplish here in our spiritual practice. It helps us to start the practice, and once we have started the practice, it helps us to continue to practice, and once we have continued the practice, it helps us to perfect the practice and come to the very end of the practice. So perseverance helps at the beginning, middle, at the end. At the beginning, it helps us to it helps us to push into the practice, and in the middle, it helps us to maintain the practice from giving up, And at the end, it helps us to complete and perfect it. And it is a antidote towards our laziness, laziness, or also is an antidote for towards not having self-confidence. And then 31 and 32, it is the practice of perfection of meditative concentrations, So meditative concentration help us to focus our mind to be flexible and serviceable wherever we direct to any virtuous object that we can direct to gain control over our own mind. At the moment you want to direct your mind to some meditation, and your mind want to go outside. Your mind doesn't want to go there. Where do you want? Your mind want to meditate. You want your mind to focus and meditate, but your mind says, no, I think I will go outside. I will go shopping. I like to do shopping. Or sometimes it says, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I feel like I want to listen to music. So it doesn't listen to us, at the moment. It has its own, it wants to have its own freedom. It wants to do whatever it wants to do. Don't give me order. I can do whatever I want. Don't give me order to be here in the meditation cushion. I don't want. I'm tired of that. I want to do something exciting. So then our body is in cushions, our mind is somewhere else. So meditative concentrations give us control over our mind. When you say, I want to meditate and I want to focus on emptiness or bodhicitta or impermanent, whatever, so it listens and is able to focus it. So then when we do practice with that kind of focus, with that kind of concentrations, then whatever practice we do, it becomes much more effective. And therefore, we will have much more better result and quick result. Otherwise, we stay on the cushion for 2 hours and our mind is on cushion for only 10 minutes. Other times, it keep on going here and there, come back few seconds, and then it keep on going here and there, come on. It's like dealing with your dog, come here, and it comes a little bit and then it starts running. Come here, and it comes a little bit and again it started running, And so it is like that, It keep on coming, but it stay very, very short moments. And again, it keep on wandering here and there. And so body is here for a long time, but mind is not there. And so that is why we are not having a so success with our practice, as much success as we would like to see, because of not being able to focus and concentrate. And therefore, concentration is very important, needed, so that we can have control and in our practice. And then 34 is the wisdom. The wisdom realizing emptiness. And without wisdom realizing emptiness, then we cannot get rid of delusion permanently, By applying different meditation and practice, we can reduce the delusions. Definitely, we can reduce the delusions. Definitely, we can stop it from manifesting it. But we cannot get from the very root of it. Until we get the very root of all the delusion, that is fundamental ignorance. And in order to cut the very fundamental ignorance, that is the very root of all the other delusions, then we need the wisdom realizing the emptiness. that can contradict and counteract that fundamental ignorance. And only through overcoming all the delusions we can free from the samsara and from the suffering permanently. And only through that we can achieve, whether it is self-liberation or liberation for all sentient beings, the enlightenment, only through by overcoming the delusions. And therefore, the wisdom is must and needed, And so then verse number 35, the importance of having both the karma abiding and wisdom. Why we need a union of them. Not only we need both the karma abiding or meditative concentration and wisdom, but we need both of them in union. And together they become more effective. And so even we have one-pointed concentrations or karma abiding, if we don't have the wisdom, then we wouldn't be able to cut the very root of that. And even we have the wisdom penetrating the ultimate reality or true reality, if we don't have the meditative concentration, then again, our analyze, when we are trying to analyze or meditate, it becomes a little bit distracted, and then so it doesn't become so powerful. It doesn't become so powerful. One of the examples that you often see in teaching is like, when you want to see, in order to see a drawing art in the wall, in the dark, you need the candle, the light, because it's dark. So, but then if it's windy, you cannot see clearly, If the candle, even there is a light, if it's blowing, it's not stable. You can see the painting, but you can't see it very clearly. And it's similar like that. You have the wisdom, but the light of the wisdom, but if you don't have the concentrations, the karma abiding, and then blow away by the wind of the distractions, then you can't see the reality very clearly. But when you have the support of not being moved by the wind of the distractions, and when it's totally focused, concentrated, and the light is not moving, then you can see very clearly. And so the reality. So that is why both, why they need both of them together in union. And so 38 and 39, that is where, therefore, we should start to generate the union of karma abiding and insight. So the need to the union of that. And then again, more on, during the meditation sessions, then we try to do the space-like meditations in the meditative equipoise. And then when we are out of the meditative in the post meditation, then we try to train in meditating on illusion like emptiness by seeing all whatever appears, whatever we appear to our mind, whatever we hear, whatever we smell, whatever we see, all of them are reminding they are like illusions, that they are like a dream, even though they appear so real, truly existent to our mind, but that is not how they really exist. In reality, they are empty of truly existence, but to our mind, they are just appearing like a truly existent. Therefore, they are like illusions. So training that way through that, So when we do together that way, then it helps the meditation help the meditation sessions, and meditation session help the post-meditation session. And in that way, the both become very effective. And so that, and then together with that wisdom, then we apply method, and together with the method and wisdom, then we can overcome the ocean of samsara, and to be able to go to the shore of the fully enlightenment. And so then Lama Tsongkhapa saying, we should try to study and practice the complete path instead of just partial, instead of trying to practice the partial path, we should try to study and understand the whole path, complete path, and then try to practice the whole complete path, And so that the Lamrim explained the whole complete path. And so those who aspire for liberation and enlightenment, you should try to do that. And so these are the common path, the Lamrim, in short, in detail, then is the practice of three capacity. In short, three principal aspects of path: the renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom. Those are the common path to the Sudrayana as well as Vajrayana. And so you should have both those. And in order to our tantric practice, Vajrayana practice, tantric practice to be effective, we must have that foundations. If we don't have that foundations, then our practice is not so effective. Generally speaking, the Vajrayana practice is supposed to be very quick path, profound path, easy path. It is only easy path, it is only profound path, it is only quick path, only if you have those foundations. If you don't have those foundations, it is not easy, it's more difficult path. It's not quick path, it's long path. It's not profound, it's less profound. But when you have those foundations, when you have the foundation of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, on the basis of those foundations, then when we engage in another form of practice that is explained in the Vajrayana, then those practices become very profound. And they become profound and quick and easy path because of the support of that foundation path. And so that we should, therefore, is so crucial to focus on that foundations. So crucial to focus on that foundations. And so Lama Tsongkhapa says, then 43, through the application concentrational instruction, I have made meaningful human existence, I have obtained, and so we have to make meaningful in that way. Yeah, and so then entering the Vajrayana path, and once you have entered the Vajrayana path, then engage in the path of generation and completion path. And so through that, then we make our life meaningful. And then 43 and 45, then Lama Tsongkhapa making the dedications. So with that, I think I just kind of run through. So I have some few minutes to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Geshe. Yes, Geshe, thank you so much for that beautiful teaching, which we really felt the blessings of Geshe-la's teaching, taking us very eloquently through all of those verses. I don't know how Geshe-la did it with such meaning and really so much impact. So thank you so much, Geshe-la, for that. And we have two questions, if Geshe-la had time. Robin and Miffy have given questions. So I'm wondering, Miffy, if you could unmute yourself and put your question to Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Right at the beginning, when you were talking about, applying ourselves to Dharma practice. And I found that, it's when things go wrong, there is a great incentive to practice Dharma, but how can we use the good times for the Dharma?
Geshe-la's on mute, so might need to just unmute. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. When things are going good, we tend to be distracted. As I mentioned, that to practice, we have to be reminded and by the difficulties. And when there is difficulties, then we are reminded of the practice and we are able to practice. But when things are going well, and then we get distracted, and then we forget to practice. And again, I think, if we can remember, when things are going good, recognizing how fortunate I am that I have all this good condition at the moment, and that could change because the nature of impermanent, because of the nature of the samsara, because of all of that, things could change anytime. And therefore, if I waste this great opportunity when things are good, if I don't utilize it to that, when things goes bad, even I want to practice, it can be very challenging, because of a lot of challenges. For example, even when you are physically sick, even you want to practice your body, because of the pain, because of that, it doesn't support you. It is difficult because the discomfort and the pain overtake your mind and you are unable to concentrate so much. Or maybe you have some other problems, whether in our job, finance, or whether in a relationship. And when those are problems, even when we try to practice, our mind get very distracted, easily distracted, because our mind keep on going back to that. And so even when you have the intention of practice, even when we practice, because things are going bad, it bothers our mind, and also it becomes more difficult. But when we don't have that, then our mind can focus better, less distraction. If we, that we are not overwhelmed by that a lot of those emotions and feelings. And so therefore recognizing this is the best opportunity for me to practice, because physically, mentally, my mind is more stable, more focused, more, and therefore reminding that this is the best time to practice. And so I think reminding that is very important. I think recognizing this is the best time, best opportunity to practice, because things are good, and I cannot ask more than better condition to practice the Dharma. And this is like that we have been praying all our life to have that kind of condition to practice. And now you have got the conditions, and if you don't practice it, then what's the point of making all these prayer and dedications to have all the conducive condition to practice the Dharma, where we are free from all the obstacles? And so through that, recognizing this is that, and then trying to apply as much as possible, and also recognizing, dedicating all our goodness by recognizing that we have all these good conditions. Not everyone has such a good conditions, and feeling compassion for those who doesn't have that such conditions, and then feeling compassion for those other who doesn't have similar conditions, because they are overwhelmed by so many others sufferings, problems, conflict, difficulties. So recognizing their sufferings, their pain, and then trying to develop compassion for them, and trying to dedicate that may everyone has same condition like I have. May everyone has good conditions like that I have now. And so thereby then we dedicate good conditions to everyone, and make that to develop compassion for others. And so transforming that to develop more compassion and to dedicate our own goodness, our own positive condition conducive conditions for others. So, okay, thank you.
Wonderful, Geshe-la. Thank you so much. And I wonder if Geshe-la would mind just answering one more question from Robin.
Yes, of course. I can take questions. Yes.
This will be our last.
And I can take even more if there is. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Robin, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hello, Geshe-la. Thank you so much for your teaching today.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Meditating.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, maybe my connection is not so good. Is it possible to read the one that I sent in the chat? Or...
Yes, I'll go back to the chat. I just can't work out which one it is.
Okay.
I'm very sorry about this, guys.
Okay. Would everyone else like to mute except Robin and I, because it gets a bit confusing? Robin, I've got the one in the chat. Would you like to read it? Because your audio's fine. It's just not your video's not so good. That's all.
Okay, sure. So meditating on death and precious human rebirth has always made me feel more anxious, tight, and fearful. And it's like it creates more attachment to this life. And I wondered what you would recommend to help in that situation.
Oh, Geshe-la's still muted. Could Geshe-la unmute? Thank you.
Yes, I think while it's precious, we have to recognize while it's precious, but also recognizing it's impermanent. And also recognizing, that if we create the right cause and conditions, the precious human life might not be so rare, Of course, if we don't create the cause and conditions, it will be rare. But if we create the right cause and condition, it's not rare. And we have the opportunity. It's on our own hand whether it become a rare or not, and we can decide, whether it's going to be rare or not. And so, therefore, I think by knowing that by engaging in the right cause and conditions, through trying to refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions, and by trying to engage in 10 virtuous actions, that it wouldn't be so rare, and it can. So I think maybe focus on that side when you feel like kind of fearful and attached, because you feel, this is the only kind of. If you lose that, then you wouldn't have any chances, and it is such that. And so maybe too much focus on that maybe is letting you to be more fearful and so attached. Maybe then you try to focus that it's rare in generally speaking, but also we have met the Dharma. We know the Dharma. We have the interest in Dharma. And we are trying to practice. We are trying effort. And so with that kind of, if we continue that effort, and if we continue to follow the path, then, it might not be so rare, because the cause and conditions, we are creating it. So therefore, so I think maybe that might help to focus on that. I think when we meditate on Lamrim, and same with the dead impermanent, for some people, it can inspire them to motivate them to practice. But for some people, sometime in certain condition, in certain circumstances, it might make them very, very fearful. And so again, when you have that kind of too much, that kind of fearful and that kind of thing, then you have to change the topic. Sometimes you need to change the topic of the meditations. And sometimes you might have to change the way you are meditating slightly different. And as I mentioned, the focusing on slightly different, instead of seeing, oh, this is the only one time, and therefore I don't want to lose it. And therefore that kind of being so attached to it and also fearful, knowing, then you try to focus your mind towards that. It's only rare in certain conditions, but if we really create the cause and condition we practice, it's not rare. And therefore, we can continue to have that. And so I think focusing on that side can help you to relieve of that kind of little bit being too fearful and being too attached to that, because it is like you wouldn't get second opportunity, and so therefore you don't want to let it go, so you are very attached to it. But once you can get second opportunity, third opportunity, that and that. Once you know that, then you feel, oh, I don't have to hold so tightly, I can let it go. And so slightly focusing that way can help. So sometimes we might have to change the topic itself. Sometimes we just have to change the way we are meditating on that topic slightly and focus a little bit on other, especially when you are dealing with that kind of fear and that kind of emotion, then we change slightly that, and that could be helpful. Okay, is that okay, Robin?
Yes, thank you so much, Geshe.
Try to do that and see, and then if you don't see any much differences, still you are struggling with that, then I think maybe you can talk with, if you have any teachers close by or other Sangha members, you continue to, it is good to share with other Sangha members and then and discuss. And of course, especially if you have teachers, then to be able to discuss, and maybe they might give small advice, small changes here. Sometimes it just need to change very slightly, it doesn't change a lot of differences. Sometimes you just need to change a little bit, slightly focus a little bit here and there, and that could help to solve the whatever problem that you are dealing with. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for joining and participating. Thank you, and I really enjoy myself, and it was great to contact from long distance in that way. Thank you.
Geshe, thank you so much. If Geshe is okay with this, Miffy's going to offer a short Thanksgiving mandala, and then we'll just do the short dedication prayers and the long life prayers for His Holiness and Lama Zopa. And on behalf of everyone, Geshe, before we do that, thank you so much for giving so much of Geshe-la's time for this and for us all, because we've needed it and we've missed you, Geshe-la, and it's so wonderful to have this interaction with Geshe-la, even though, of course, it is over a long distance, and it's helped our minds and our hearts very, very much. Thank you very much. And Miffy will now do the Thanksgiving mandala.
Thank you, Geshe. I've got white Tara here to offer you an incredibly long life as well from all of us over here in Australia. Continuous offerings of white Tara long life. Ni te kyang pa di Sangye Shindu Mi Te O Wai Gin Trokoi Nam Dai Shin Lai Chopa Shoi Jetsun Lai Me Kui Seraten Jin An Kai Trin Lim Joy Chui Gil Pai Dang Lo San Tempe Droi Me Sai Soin Dim Droi Mun Sao Tai Tui Neg Yui Chi Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kamniatayami.
So I'll just lead the prayers on behalf of everyone because altogether it's a little bit echoey. I hope that's okay. So I dedicate whatever virtues I've ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Dragpa to shine forever. And we'll do the long life prayers, short long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You who uphold the subduer's moral path. Sorry, I'll just wait till Venerable Lindy gets it up so that everyone can participate. Where are we? There we are. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers, honouring the three jewels, Saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And so, Geshe-la, we just wanted to offer kata to you, and please, Geshe-la, return to teach us. We would really love that so much. And I say that on behalf of all your many dedicated students here in Australia. Thank you for everything. May you live long and have a wonderful life. Thank you for inspiring us. And on behalf of all of your students everywhere, Geshe-la, thank you so much.
I have a wonderful life. I will get distracted from the practice. So maybe you should dedicate that I have some obstacles, so then maybe I might practice more. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate everyone for your patience and your participations. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Wonderful that you could attend. Thank you, everybody. Any questions, you can email me or email your centre, and we look forward to putting this up online. I also neglected to thank Venerable Lindy, the technical expert, who really helps me so much in every way. Thank you, Venerable Lindy. I couldn't have done it without you. And also, Miffy, thank you for being so wonderful, offering mandala. Thank you, everybody, for participating and asking questions and being here. It's been wonderful to share it with you. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steffi.
Bye.
I know.